From League Safe World Headquarters, it's Fantasy Football Almost Daily. With Paul Charchian, Matt Harrison, Christian Peterson, and Brian Johnson.
Welcome to the first of Fantasy Football Almost Daily version 2.0, V2.0, and the V stands for video. You can see us now, a mixed blessing at best. I am Paul Charchian. My co-hosts, Christian Peterson and Brian Johnson. Hello, guys.
Hey, glad to be here.
It's our first one on set. What do you think?
This is different.
It does feel different, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It's got a whole level of excitement that we didn't have with just the audio
welcome to the
version.
League Safe Den.
Yeah, the den. You can see what it looks like in the League Safe offices. Just like the whole place is just like this.
Just like this.
My office, my desk, just like this.
Yeah,
I like League Safe Lounge, but that's my vote.
That is better.
I like the
League Safe
alliteration
Lounge.
for sure.
For sure.
I finally added value.
If you're listening via podcast and you're wondering what we look like and you want to see the video version, go to leaguesafepost.com, at least for the time being. At some point, this is also going to be on leaguesafe.com as well. So, all right, the purpose of today's podcast is we're going to break down 3 running backs with new news and talk about these 3 guys, Zeke Elliott, LeVeon Bell, and Arian Foster, and we'll talk about new news related to them, how much they've moved on cheat sheets, if at all, and we begin with Ezekiel Elliott. He's got a hamstring injury that's being termed day-to-day. We don't know how long that's going to be. Teams play funny with day-to-day diagnoses. You know, you can remember like Kevin White was day-to-day, for, for most of last year. So, you never know what day-to-day necessarily means. Have you changed whatever your ranking was on Zeke Elliott? Have you changed your ranking based on his hamstring injury here before preseason game number 1?
No, I mean, these preseason injuries, like you said, you don't know how serious they are or how serious they aren't. It feels like they're probably just I don't know, being safe with their prized rookie here and just going to hold him out of a few practices until he gets healthy. You never want to hear about a hamstring injury for any of these skill position guys that rely on their speed and their legs. Of course, hamstrings can kind of linger for a while, but it's early in camp. I'm not concerned about it. I think he's going to be the bell cow. I think they're gonna hand him the ball quite a bit. So yeah, there's no indication that it's anything serious. So I haven't moved him down on my cheat sheet.
All right.
Yeah,
Brian?
my ranking's lower than your guys' probably, but it hasn't changed.
Well, mine's 1.
Yeah,
running back
obviously
1, so you're
than that,
lower than me.
But yeah, I was watching NFL Network last night. Shout out to NFL Network. Hopefully they recognize that. But Terrell Davis was a little worried about the hamstring, and I'll take his word over most people saying it can linger. And we've seen hamstring injuries linger with players a lot in recent years, or not recent years, all years. But right now, yeah, day to day, it's nothing to panic about. But if he does it again, he might go from Zeke to Tweak Elliott, in my opinion. So
Zeke to Tweak.
That
could be a problem.
Yep.
Let's hope he doesn't live up to that nickname.
I mean, the only concern is that the Cowboys see this injury and they're like, this is our guy. We better take it easy.
Fragile.
Maybe we better give Darren McFadden 6 or 7 carries instead of 2 or 3 carries. I don't think they're going to do that, but
and even if that was their plan to use McFadden more early, what would end up happening is McFadden's averaging his usual 3.7 yards per carry.
Yeah.
Zeke blows by him at 5.5 per carry, and pretty soon they're jettisoning that plan. So I don't think there would be any concern.
There's a love for Alf, man. No one's talking about Alf here.
Yeah, because McFadden's hurt right now.
hurt.
Too.
I mean,
It's Morris.
Alf's
Alfred
de
Morris
facto number 1 back
taking the
right
number
now.
1
He
carry.
He
is
deserves a
number
little bit of recognition.
And I've seen some people on Twitter like, I'm going to go get Alfred Morris.
Yeah, sneaky.
Yep.
You know, everyone on the clock in any draft, any email draft yesterday when McFadden or Elliott goes down, they're like, oh, Alf Morris, click, regardless of round. But people are panicking for sure. Don't panic yet.
No.
You didn't. You keep him at 1, right?
I'm keeping Zeke at number 1. Give me your possible spectrum of outcomes for Ezekiel Elliott this year. Now, let's take, even though he's injured now, let's take injury out of this because I don't think we want to start talking about, the worst case scenario is he misses the full year with injury. That's
obviously,
not, but assuming injury is not a significant factor for him more than any other running back, what's the spectrum of possible outcomes for Ezekiel Elliott this year, Christian?
Well, the top end of the spectrum is where you have him ranked, which is the number 1 overall guy. I mean, this is a team that gave DeMarco Murray 393 carries just 2 years ago, 450 touches for Murray that year. They're not going to run a rookie into the ground quite that much, but
they could.
They could, but to put that in perspective, last year only one running back in the NFL had more than 300 carries.
Yeah.
and that was Adrian Peterson. So even if Elliott is only getting 300, that's as much work as any other back in the NFL, and through sheer volume alone, he's going to be a top 10 fantasy guy. So I think his range, again, assuming health, I think he's going to get the carries. So his range, that's why I like him as a top-notch fantasy guy, is because I think his floor is pretty high. I think his range is, anywhere within the top 10 of running backs.
Well, give me yards and touchdowns. So give me the spectrum of yards that you think he could get, just the rushing yards alone. High end.
So if he's at 300 carries, and I have to assume he can average somewhere north of 4 yards per carry. So I'm going to say low end is 1,200 yards. Mm-hmm. High end is, heck, if he gets 375 carries,
at 5.5 yards per
yeah,
carry,
you're looking at a
get
1,700 yard season, and all, the touchdowns are going to be his too. There's no indication that they're going to bring in Alfred Morris or Darren McFadden at the goal line. There's no indication that they would need to do that. So, yeah, I mean, you're looking at a range of touchdowns probably from, 8 on the low end to 16 on the high end.
Alfred Morris is no threat at the goal line. I believe last year he did not score a single touchdown from inside the 5. Do you see the range of possible outcomes for Ezekiel Elliott to be any different?
I don't have much to add in terms of the rushing discussion, but I'm worried about what he can do through the air. In his last 2 years in college, averaged under 2 receptions per game, 0 touchdowns.
Yeah.
So third down work worries me a little bit. Lance Dunbar could be coming back, or he will be coming back, coming off major knee injury, but he's supposed to be ready by week 1. He was one of the better receiving backs in the league.
Yeah, he was very good
early
last year in that role.
When it comes to his overall production, Elliott, that is, I don't know. His PPR, he could falter a little bit because he could concede some third down work. But that's why they play the games. We'll see.
Yeah, the upside, I think he has as high of upside as any running back in the NFL if he stays healthy. All right, let's move on to LeVeon Bell. Barring something very strange happening, he's going to miss those first 4 games of the regular season. So you already know he's out 1/3 of your fantasy football regular season. So how far did he drop on your cheat sheets? For me, I think I believe I moved him from 6 to 11 at the running back position, and at 6 I had him. It was 6 to 11.
You were already
I had him.
down on him.
I already had a lot of concerns that, given his history of injury, that the Steelers were going to take some carries away from him. DeAngelo Williams was really every bit as good. Mm-hmm. So it felt like, boy, I mean, logic just says that he should have lost carries anyway. How far down did Le'Veon Bell move for you guys?
I've got him in about the same range. I think I have him 11 or 12 right now. I had him, I think, 4th before the injury, just based on the upside alone. When he's been playing and when he's been healthy, he's obviously one of the top 2 or 3 running backs in fantasy. But
before a serious injury.
2 serious injuries now in 2 years. Granted, one of them was in the playoffs, so it didn't affect your fantasy season. But still, 2 essentially season-ending injuries in 2 years. 2 suspensions now, right? He's on strike 2.
That's right,
I believe. So next strike is year-long suspension, right?
Correct.
So that's a risk.
Yes.
And now, I mean, any running back has trouble making it through the year completely healthy. They might miss a game here or a game there with a hamstring injury or a knee injury or whatever. So now you're guaranteed he's going to miss 4. You're not guaranteed he's going to play all the rest of them either.
That's right.
He might get dinged up for part of that.
Such a cavalier, don't give a F attitude to it. Has to concern you that he's not taking this seriously at all. So I'm with you. Outside of the top 10, but just outside.
How does this, Brian, how does this affect Bell's dynasty value in your mind?
He's what, 24 right now?
He's still young. He still came into the league young.
He's actually more intriguing from a dynasty perspective because his stock is down across the board. So I would still sink in a startup league. I would sink a first round pick into him, but I think he's he's below the David Johnsons and the Ezekiel Elliots of the world. I mean, there's cause for concern, legitimate cause for concern with Le'Veon Bell. He doesn't seem like it's all there. So
I'm almost more down on him in dynasty in that now I need him to not get that 3rd strike for the rest of his career. Yeah. And it might be asking a lot.
Yeah,
I mean, he has not exercised good judgment in the past, and I got to hope that this is the time that it all comes together. And I don't know if it'll be the case for Le'Veon Bell.
More optimistic about Bell or Gordon, Josh Gordon long term, or Martavis Bryant. The list is growing. It's a shame. It's
well, here I'm more optimistic that Josh Gordon has hit bottom and is crawling his way out than I am with Le'Veon Bell, who I worry hasn't even recognized has not recognized how fragile his situation is yet. Let's go to Arian Foster, blowing away all other running backs right now. AJ Ajayi's hurt, so there's that. And so, that's a factor as well. I'm not a believer in Jay Ajayi at all to begin with, unless he is a dramatically better back than the guy we saw last year. Still, Arian Foster's got all of his own baggage with all of the recurring soft tissue injuries. I mean, it's just, it's almost laughable. So, given the great reports, given that he landed in really an ideal situation, where do you have Arian Foster?
This is a tough one. I'm cautiously optimistic simply because there isn't anybody else in Miami. I mean, it's pretty clear that he's the best player there, and it doesn't take much to be that.
Not saying a lot,
like you mentioned about Jay Ajayi not being the most talented guy, but and so through opportunity alone, you have to take him seriously, and I think that brings him up into probably the number 2 running back range, somewhere in the mid-teens for me. I think he proved last year with the Texans and throughout his career, really, that he can catch passes. So even if Ajayi is involved there, I think Foster is going to be the guy who's getting the receptions, which helps obviously in PPR leagues. He's a proven touchdown scorer. But the question is the injury and the age. He's 29 years old. He's got a ton of mileage. He averaged less than 3 yards per carry in the brief games that we actually saw him before he went down with an injury last year. And you mentioned it already, the long history of injury with him. So,
right.
Even if you go in on Foster and he looks great early on, he feels like he's going to be a sell high candidate early in the year. Like
he always is, right?
Yeah.
It's always all about finding the right time to get rid of.
Yeah,
Arian
he
Foster.
probably will look great, assuming he's healthy for the first 2, 3, 4 games of the year.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're just waiting for the other shoe to drop. So to me,
But other owners know that now, right? I mean, Brian, don't you think at this point everybody knows the deal on Foster? So it's hard to sell high on him in mid-October when everybody knows that they're taking the same gamble you'd be taking on. Even if he's a top 5 fantasy running back at that point, I think it's hard to get good value for him.
I'll just say this: I am down on Miami running backs probably for the rest of my life until I see. I know. I did a lot of Lamar Miller research. So in Miami, ever since 2004, there's been 2 running backs that top 225 carries for the Dolphins.
Well, we got a whole new coaching staff.
We do, but they've had like 8 new coaching staff. It's just seems like they don't ride one guy down in Miami, and I don't think they're going to ride either one as the bell cow. So
Adam Gase rode Matt Forte for the most part last year until he got
hurt. It's probably
hurt.
trouble for them if they do try to ride Foster because he can't hold up
that.
to 20 touches a game. They'd be better off giving him 10 to 12, and their offense would probably be more effective. So if they do suddenly start to give him that number of carries, I don't know, that might actually be a warning sign for me that there's even less likelihood that he's going to make it through the rest of the year.
It took about 2 days after they signed Foster for him to pass Ajayi and ADP. So people are just buying on the brand name recognition. It's just too high of a price to pay.
They are. I think if he starts out hot, he's going to have a very good trade market. I think people are going to think, oh, this is the old Foster. This is it.
Yeah.
He's back. And so I think, again, if you draft him, I think it's potentially with the sole purpose of getting a few good games out of him early in the year and then flipping him for something better.
As an assignment, maybe for a future one of these Fantasy Football Almost Dailies, let's figure out, looking at the schedule, bye week, and everything else,
where you can sell him.
What's the day? I want you to identify the day you're selling Arian Foster. There's homework for you right there.
So where do you have him?
I have him ranked
26.
Okay. Right now, which is still in reasonably high territory. But I think there's a good chance he's a top 10 back for the first few month and a half of the season, and after that I'm taking shots on the Jeremy Langfords and DeMarco Murrays and guys that have question marks of their own.
It thins out a lot. I mean, you could argue that it thins out after the top 5 or 6, but especially in the mid-teens in running backs, it's all a crapshoot. So throw him in the mix with all of those guys, and
I think he's a great do the opposite back.
Different.
Arian Foster really is. I mean, almost the definition of it, right? If you only have to spend a mid-round draft pick, your 5th or your 6th round pick, and and if you strike gold with him, and you've already got a roster that's got Julio Jones and Allen Robinson and Cam Newton on it, or Gronk and Des Bryant, and I think you're in a really, really good spot if he hits. You're set.
And especially because again, using that strategy, you're going in on 3 or 4 or 5 running backs in that range, and you just need 2 of them to hit. You don't necessarily, if Foster goes belly up, you didn't risk that much. You've got 4 other guys that maybe can pick up the slack.
How high do you think he could climb in preseason drafts if he has one or two good preseason games, you think he could get into the second round
No.
territory?
No, it's just I just think the book's known on him so well.
Yeah.
I don't think he could. I just think everybody knows. I mean, it'd be one thing if there weren't such condemning evidence and compelling evidence, but there is. All right, let's wrap it up. Fantasy Football Almost Daily. You've caught our first video podcast. We hope you like it, and we hope you come back for more. Go to League Safe Post for updated cheat sheets. You can get all of our rankings. You can get Christian's Dynasty and Empire League rankings, which is always very important. Rookie rankings, all of that good stuff, and, of course, more of this very podcast.